Hi friends, and welcome to the Knittery. In this video I'll try to answer your questions about supplies for needle felting. My name is Bev. If you're watching this, you probably know about me. If you're new, I hope this video interests you and you watch some other of my videos. You'll find information about me in the description box below. I'm going to talk about fibers and tools for needle felting. I'm not affiliated with any of the companies that I'll mention, and I will put links to the things I mention in the description box below. As usual, your questions make me think and rethink and learn. So I'm here again with some tips I hope are helpful to you. I love talking to you often, making these little videos to keep us connected. I appreciate it that you understand I'm in Georgia where it's hot. It's hot and very humid. I'm toiling over all this hot yarn. Sometimes I'm even actually hot water felting. That's what I've been doing today. And I don't always take time to do up my hair and put on a fresh shirt. So some videos you get only my voice and my hands. It seemed to me some of your most important questions about my needle felting video were about affordability. I try to be conscious of costs, but I feel like I let you down a bit by not showing more affordable options for beginning tools and supplies. I hesitate to make recommendations and mention brand names because I know there are many sources beyond what I mention. So I encourage you to go do some research without taking my own advice. So I listened to myself, I went and got some information, and here's what I have to share with you. First, some tools. I showed you my favorite selection of needles, which the set that I purchased did cost over $30. And I didn't show you any other affordable options. So I'd like to do that. To start where I started, you can purchase a tool like this. This is a Clover brand tool that's available on Amazon for $4.99. Perhaps a bit more, but I'm seeing it for $4.99. This tool and this tool that's much like it. This is a different brand, but it's the same kind of thing. This one was $9.99, but I'm sure I used a coupon or got it on sale and probably got it for $5. So these two tools, they're different brands, but they are very much the same. It is a 3-needle tool, and you can easily, I only have 2 needles in this one, so you can easily use it with 3 needles or 2 needles or 1 needle. These are fine needles that come with this tool, and you can get replacement needles affordably. And these replacement needles will fit in either one of those tools I just showed you. And also, these replacement needles would fit in this other tool that's also available on Amazon. This is another Clover brand tool, and this is a multi-needle tool. This tool holds 5 needles, and again, you can use it with 5 needles or less. It does have a little lock on that sleeve, so you can lock it and not hurt yourself, hopefully. Locked. There you go. That little sleeve does lock. But because, again, these needles are extremely sharp. You can easily hurt yourself. This tool is available on Amazon, I think, for less than $15. So it's a bit more than the smaller tools. And I, in fact, tend to prefer this smaller tool. This comes in handy for some finishing work but when you're doing detail work, the smaller tool, I think, works best. And again, you can get refills. So these are fine needle refills, but you can get coarser needles as well, and start quite affordably with some tools like this. If you decide you want to try some more variety in felting needles, you can try these LivingFelt needles. These are not all of my needles, but the selection of needles that I'm using right now. This is how they come, from LivingFelt, taped to this card with a warning about how sharp they are and that they're not for use by children and should be kept out of the way of children and pets. It comes with this guide telling you what each needle is for. These are green color coded, so I know that that's a 40 triangle that's suitable for fine work, small details, and fine wool. Of course, I will provide a link to this information. And then I wanted you to see, let's get this a little bit closer if I can without tumbling it. This is the finest needle in my collection of LivingFelt needles. This is the coarsest needle in my collection of LivingFelt needles. And then this is a felting needle that I ordered online just by simply ordering a quantity of felting needles. So I got, I don't know, 20 or 25. And you can see that it's quite a bit larger and coarser than these other needles. So having this versatility in your tools is very helpful. If this is all I had, this big coarse tool, I wouldn't be able to do the detail work that I do, I think. So I hope that's helpful to you to see those different options. So if you did want to start with a selection of the LivingFelt needles, I recommend, because this is what I use. You may be totally different. Of course, we're all different. We all approach our art and craft differently. I generally use only these three needles: the purple 40 spiral, the green 40 triangle, and the yellow 42 triangle. Most of my work is done with those three needles. So if I were going to make a recommendation about what you would get to start, if you were going to purchase LivingFelt needles, I suggest that you buy 1 card of green, 1 card of yellow, 1 card of purple, and a small felting pad. This is a LivingFelt felting pad. And if you're making a bag and you want to be able to put the felt in it, you'll want a smaller pad than this. So you can get a pad that's 5 inches by 5 inches. So I put those things in my cart, my LivingFelt cart, 3 cards of needles and 1 pad, and my total came up to $15.56. Now, this is without shipping. And you may not even need the felting pad if you have something like this, an old piece of upholstery foam that you can use, which I find quite versatile because I can even fold it up and stuff it in a bag, where this felt won't fold like that. Won't bend and fold so that you can put it in something. I mean, it does bend, but I've not done that with it. It may, in fact, fold up and stuff inside something. I haven't tried it because this is much more bendable. And I have this. Had this for a long time. I've hardly ever used this flat piece. I have used it. I like it. It's a good product. But I just haven't had much use for it because I have these other pieces that I use quite often. I opened this package of replacement fine felting needles to put the third one in my tool, and I thought I would show you how I do that, put a new needle in my tool. As I showed you, my clover tool only has 2 needles in it right now, and it will hold 3. So I'm going to put that third needle in there. And like I said, I opened this little package of replacement needles. See, it has an arrow on it, so you know to slide it open this way and take one of these needles out very carefully, which I've already done. So here's my replacement needle, poked right there, and I'm going to open my pen and show where those needles go in right there. There's two sitting in there. And then I'm going to take this third one and drop it in. And then just screw this top right back on there. And you see I've done this with the needles protected by this cap. So that's how you put a replacement needle in your tool. And again, if you wanted to only use one needle, open it up, take two out, carefully put them in your foam. I keep my needles stuck in my foam when I'm using them. I'm not using them. I put them away carefully inside a box that children and pets can't get to. So I know I've talked about how sharp the needles are, and the importance for caution several times. It is very important to be careful. I've given you a little bit of advice about the tools. Now let's talk about fibers. And as you saw, I didn't have any fiber in my LivingFelt cart, and I will get to that in a minute. I will show you some of the fibers in a minute. But as I said at the beginning, let's think about where I started and how affordable it was for me, because I had this simple, inexpensive tool and I used yarn. Use yarn. Use any yarn. Use fingering weight. Use worsted weight. Uh-oh, I lost my worsted weight skein. It fell and landed on my foot, so I got it back. Use yarn. Use any yarn. Use fingering weight. Use worsted weight. Use roving yarn. This is Knit Picks palette fingering weight yarn. This is Patton's classic wool, and I'll show them to you. This is Knit Picks palette fingering weight yarn. That color is Shire Heather. They do a good job of naming their colors. This is Patton's classic wool, products that I've mentioned many times before. So again, what I had on hand at the time. This is Patton's classic wool roving yarn. And this other one over here, this is, and I don't know if this product is available any longer. I've had this for quite some time. This is Lion Brand Alpine wool. And I'm going to stab each one of these just a little bit so you can see. I have 3 needles in my tool now. And you don't really need 3 needles for the fingering weight. That it's working, but it doesn't really need the 3 needles. Then the worsted weight. And these nicer puffy ones. So if you want to achieve some puffiness and texture without purchasing batting specifically for needle felting, whoopsie, use some fat wool. Like I said, This is what I would call roving yarn. It's not roving, it's roving yarn, which means that it's not spun much at all. It has a very slight twist. And this, as you can see, begins to cling to that piece of felted wool pretty quickly and nicely, and is easy to create texture. You can also, with any of these, just snip off the smallest of pieces to use for detail work. Even the puffy ones, snip off a piece and use that for your detail work. And I've mentioned these brands, but you continue to surprise me with the things you find that are affordable and available. So go find some affordable wool that I don't know about. I love that so big. Thank you for doing that, for showing me things that I didn't even know about. If you would like to move to using batting for your needle felting, this is what you want to look for. I'll talk about these other fibers in a minute, but this is batting for needle felting. This is mixed fibers that separate into small pieces very easily, and both large and small pieces are easily applied to surfaces by needle felting. This is about an 80% of an ounce, so 0.8 ounces of a bat. So it probably was an ounce, and some of it's been used, but I just waited a few minutes ago, and it's 0.8 ounces, and this is probably what it will look like. And I'll show you what it looks like on a picture on the LivingFelt website, so you can see that their product looks very similar to this. And this may in fact be a LivingFelt product, but I don't know. It came to me unlabeled. You saw the results of my felting with this batting in episode 28.5. And you can see that it begins to felt into the fabric very quickly, and you can felt it flat or leave it textured, but that works very, very well. And see, it's just fun. I like stabbing it, and I like the sound. Some people are annoyed by this sound, which is a crunching sound. Some people are annoyed by the crunch and can't needle felt because of it. I quite enjoy it. If you haven't seen my needle felting on episode 28.5, you can go watch it. So I said I would talk about these other fibers in a moment. That's what the back looks like. You can hardly see that it's come through at all. It didn't leave anything on this pad where I was felting, and it's still very secured. So I said I would move on to talk about these fibers, because these are long fibers that are more suitable for wet felting. These fibers are difficult to felt in place because of their length and because of their fineness. Now, that's not saying it doesn't work at all, but these fibers are so fine that it's difficult to hit them with my felting needle. Even if I get a bunch of it in one spot and try to felt it down, you can see it's quite different from how the batting reacts. The same with this long fiber. It's not that it doesn't work, it's that it doesn't work as well. Let me let you get a little bit better look at these fibers. So you can see that this is quite a mixed batch of fibers called a bat or batting. These are longer fibers called roving, not to be confused with roving yarn that I mentioned a bit earlier. This is a different thing from roving yarn. This has not been spun at all. When I showed you the roving yarn, I was able to point out that it does have somewhat of a twist. Whereas this doesn't have any twist, it's just unprocessed wool fiber, what I call roving. Again, terminology may differ, but what I'm trying to point out, and I think is pretty clear, is the difference between this one that I recommend for needle felting and these that are more appropriate for wet felting. And again, I'll show you what these fibers, these kinds of fibers, look like on the LivingFelt website. So you can clearly see there also on the picture on the website that there's a marked difference between what this fiber looks like, what this fiber looks like, and what that fiber looks like. So you can clearly see that there's a difference even in photographs on the computer, on the website, that these fibers look different from these fibers. These rovings, and I believe they are called rovings. Again, forgive me if my terminology is different from yours. These rovings are clearly different here and in photographs from this batting that I recommend for needle felting. And if you're going to purchase something, I think this is the type of thing you should look for that is specifically for needle felting. I mentioned wet felting. Wet felting is a process of using fibers to create fabric. This is completely different from what I do, which what I do, of course, is knit an object and felt it by hot water immersion felting, actually taking the object that I've knitted or crocheted and immersing it in hot water and agitating it with the soap and hot water. There are many, many ways to felt, many ways to create felt fabric, many ways to use felt fabric. Thank you so much for your interest in my work. I really, really appreciate it. I share what I've learned and what I'm learning because of your curiosity. I appreciate that so much. I'll watch for you to have more questions, and I'll have another video for you soon.